It's a disease most of us associate with older adults, but today's reality is that experts recommend screening kids for hypertension to prevent future health problems. Welcome to Health Talks. I'm Laura Termini, founder of Chicanol.com, and my guest today is Dr. Maria Carolina Delgado, MD, hypertension specialist, assistant professor of medicine at the Comprehensive Hypertension Center at UM, my partner. So welcome, doctor. And today we're going to be talking about hypertension in kids, which is something that I, to be honest, I didn't even know that it existed. So let me read something to you. The CDC says 1 out of 25 children aged 12 to 19 are hypertensive. So hypertension in kids, why, doctor?
Okay, so let's start with the beginning. In the beginning is that like a family, everything starts with the mom and dad, right? Mom and dad get married, then you have kids. So in hypertension, what you need is actually a grandparent, not even the parent. So if your grandparent had hypertension, the likelihood that the next generations will become hypertensive is about 50%. Okay? Of the future generation, no matter who you marry. When a parent is hypertensive, we're talking about between 50 and 75% or even more of the children. Like hypertension is actually such a common disease, 1 out of 2 adults in the United States, that the likelihood that you're going to marry a hypertensive person or somebody with history of hypertension will be very high. So you see very commonly the mom and dad are hypertensive. So what happened with the kids, not only there is about 75 to almost 90% of chance that the kids will become hypertensive in the future, is that the presentation of the disease comes early in life, and that's what we're talking about. So hypertension, it starts in the family, comes with your genes. The showing up, that's what we identify as a number. The quote-unquote number presents itself differently. So in kids, especially when mom and dad are hypertensive, you will have kids at the age of 12, 13, literally hypertensive. So it's not that they are at risk of hypertension, which everybody is when their parents are hypertensive. It's that they actually have hypertension. So
it's like a cycle that it repeats through family, and how do you break that cycle?
You don't break, okay. It's not that you can't break it, but the genetic risk is so strong, and it's not just one gene. So there's a accumulation of genes that one family carries versus another family, right? So the presentation and the expression of the disease is very dominant. What I mean by dominant is very strong. So that's why we talk about future generations. So you have kids, which is just so interesting. You have kids at 16 that they are hypertensive. Wow. And mom and dad are not. So how can you explain mom and dad are not? Mom, when you have a kid at 16 and mom is 40 and dad are 40, they're not hypertensive yet. So how can you explain this kid has hypertension so early? That's because mom and dad, even though they're not hypertensive yet, they will be hypertensive. Because abuela and abuelo, grandparents, are already hypertensive. So the expression early in life is because of the genetic component that the kids bring into. But side of that, hypertension is familiar disease because it runs in family, but it's a social disease because it builds up around what you do, what you eat, how you deal with the stress. So as you know, Laura, you are a little me of mom and dad. So your behavior, the way you respond to stress, the things you like, how you eat, how you exercise, somehow was built up during childhood. And that's what we call our customs. Our custom comes from family upbringing. So it's very interesting because there's a extraordinary environmental and social component to hypertension besides the genes.
Okay, so when it comes to something that we can not control but we can manage, so what are the triggers then of high blood pressure?
Okay, so let's start with the basic, and this is I wanted to come through for people to understand. Sadly, to this day, 2021, people still think hypertension is a number. So if your number is high, you have hypertension. If it's low, you don't have. It's very far from the truth. A number is what we actually select as a marker, okay? But the point is that hypertension is actually a longitudinal disease. So you start having damage of your vessels, your little arteries all over your body progressively over time. Many kids, especially if mommy is hypertensive during pregnancy, what we call preeclampsia, they already have environmental damage and effect over the fetus while mommy is pregnant. This is aside from the genetic risk. So that's why I'm telling you that you have a progressive evolution, and that's where your question comes in. So if it's progressive, why it shows up earlier in some people and in some people it doesn't, okay? So a strong genetic force, like mommy and daddy are hypertensive, the kid will become hypertensive even before them. That's one that we cannot control. But the positive and negative triggers of the environment we can, okay? So positive triggers in the sense that they will increase blood pressure are obviously drugs, smoking, lack of exercise, lack of physical activity, the management of stress, extreme emotions. So even the depressive person will have more likelihood of uncontrolled hypertension. So repress anger, repress depression. Yeah. One thing positive to that, what it is, Laura, your smile, right? When we smile and we laugh, we have both the central nervous system works completely opposite to repressing depression or depression anger. So all these factors are positive in increasing or affecting your vascular response in a bad way. So a family where there is a good diet, right? Low salt, low fat. Actually, the more natural that you can get is better. There's exercise culture. There's also a culture of, this is, I think, the most difficult, culture of exercising tolerance towards yourself as well as others, right? Because when the kids start getting, for example, bullied, or the kids start competing with another, or with a TV, or with an imaging, you don't even tolerate your human being as it is. So the kids start criticizing themselves. So that's a stress, believe me or not. That's a stress even at a very young age. So managing a stress, culture of trying just to accept yourself and, accept life as it is and make things better if you can. So those are things that work toward improving your blood pressure. So
it has to be then, doctor, a family effort. You can't leave just kids right there with everything that, because now when I'm 40, I'm like, oh my God, I used to have so much stress growing up. And now that when I'm an adult is where I realize that. And then you start, thinking about what you went through when you were a kid. Now the families need to eat better, exercise, do fun stuff together, especially in this country where we all work a lot.
It's sad. Well, it's the way we live, right? So kids usually don't see mom and dad all the time, and when they have dinner, and it goes from there. But yes, it's a family effort. And what happened with hypertension in particular is that when mom or even your grandmother, let's say Laura, you're in your 40s, right? And you say, no, I'm not hypertensive. Oh, not me. Your mom is hypertensive. So there's this concept that we're trying to change among the population in general, is that hypertension doesn't stop with you. It doesn't stop with that pill that you push in. Every time you push a pill to decrease your blood pressure, remember, your kids will become hypertensive. You see what I'm trying to say? So even though you're so careful in eating less salt and eating this and that, and you know you need to do exercise and you're going to prevent a heart attack in 10 years, what happened with your kid who's eating hamburgers or eating Happy Meals or eating any fast food? I know it's extraordinarily difficult to control because you say, well, I'm going to punish my son. I'm the one sick. Yeah, but your son already have the genes and the significant risk. So the CDC is trying, it's actually, if you do a survey in the United States alone, you can do it worldwide, but just in the United States, at the level of the high schoolers and college athletes, the one single disease common to all of them is hypertension. So if they're going to have a problem medically, it will be hypertension.
And what are the symptoms, doctor? How would a teenager, pre-adult know that they have hypertension?
What is interesting, and that had to do also with what is hypertension. So if hypertension is damage of your vessels, and then those arteries are the ones that bring blood to all your body, your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your skin, every single part of your body. Those vessels start getting damaged because they cannot respond in the right way. That's what individually. But at the same time, the big guy here, which is your heart, the one who pumps blood, that's going to get impaired over time because the heart has to do more pressure than normally need to do in order to push all this blood that's having some resistance, okay? So why am I saying this? Because there's also a concept, and I keep telling it's true. Hypertension is silent when it starts moving around. But what is not invisible. Is there. You can detect it, you can measure it. So that's what the message has to be. Yeah, okay, you don't feel anything, right, but you can measure your blood pressure. When do you start getting symptoms is when you start getting what we call target organ damage, or damage of your organs secondary to hypertension. The primary organ here is the heart. So we're going to see a typical example. 17-year-old was diagnosed with hypertension. Sadly, was giving a pat on the shoulder. Don't worry about it. You're a kid, you're nervous, do diet, do this, do that. The kid is in his own perception and mom's perception, because he's a minor, she's a minor, said, okay, maybe this is not a big problem. So time goes by, and then we're in your 20s. Okay, maybe when you were 17, you went to the doctor, but when you're 20, 21, it's actually an option because you're an I'll do that, or me, I don't feel anything. So the typical story is that you go then to your 20s, and then you hit 30. Guess what? You go to the ER with a heart attack.
Wow.
That's the mistake, because you go to the ER with a ischemic event in your brain or a stroke, God forbid, or sadly, you also go to the ER with water retention and you realize that your kidneys are not working. So what happened with hypertension is that in the longitudinal evolution of the disease, at some point, you're going to have symptoms. But you're going to have symptoms because your organs are affected. And that's what we want to prevent. If you have a disease that at the end will put you at risk of heart disease, a stroke, and kidney failure, why don't we try to do something early on? And now we have to go as far as taking care of our kids.
That's why we're here. So we have to educate parents. We have to educate the public, and that's what social media is for. That's why you guys are here. So to learn more about the Comprehensive Hypertension Center, you can call 305-243-1960. As you know, my Chicanola, I always share with you all UM's links, so you can call and make an appointment. Thank you so much, doctor, for all the info.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much.